Hi guys! So we have learned about acids, different properties that are specific to them. So the next thing to do is to learn how to name acids. So here are some keys to naming the acids. As we know, the cation is always hydrogen for the acids, and it takes the general form of H with the subscript N, X, where N is the number of hydrogens needed in order to balance out the charge of the anion, which is X. So since the cation is the same throughout, it's really the anion that's going to determine how we name different acids. So in order to be able to name acids, you need to be able to do a couple different things. And that's identify whether the anion is an element or a polyatomic ion. And then if it is a polyatomic ion, you need to be able to identify the name of the specific polyatomic ion. And that's simple. You just look at your chart and it tells you the name. So if you can do those two things, you'll be all set for naming acids. So here's rule number 1. If the anion is an element, so when you normally name it, it'll end with an IDE, you're going to write the acid name by beginning with the prefix hydro. Then attached to hydro, you're going to use the stem of the anion and put the suffix IC. That'll be your first word. And then that will be followed by the word acid. So that's a little confusing when it's all in words. Let's see how it's done. So here we have HCl. And Cl is the anion, and that's chlorine. So we know that that's just an element. It's not a polyatomic ion. So it would end in IDE when you'd say hydrogen chloride. But it's an acid, so we have to name it. Since it ends in IDE, we're going to use hydro. We're going to use the stem of the anion, so chlor, and add IC at the end. So hydrochloric, and then we're going to put the word acid. So hydro, chlor, take off the I, put the IC, and have acid at the end. So our final name is hydrochloric acid. Rule number 2. When the anion is a polyatomic ion and it ends in ITE, this is what you're going to do. You're going to, again, take the stem of the anion and put a suffix OUS at the end of it, and put the word acid. So let's look at an example. H2SO3. So SO3, if you look on your chart, is sulfite. We're going to take off the ending and put OUS with it, and then add the word acid. So this is sulfurous acid. And rule number 3 is when it's a polyatomic ion, when the anion is a polyatomic ion, and it ends in ATE, you're going to, again, take the stem of the word, put the suffix IC at the end, and then follow it by acid. So let's look. We have HNO3, and NO3 is nitrate. So we're going to take nitrate, put IC at the end of it, and add acid. So this is nitric acid. And that's pretty much it for naming acids. There are 3 rules. It's going to take a little bit of practice in order to memorize these rules, but the application of them is pretty simple. You just got to know the difference between an element and a polyatomic ion and be able to identify the polyatomic ions. And that is it.